Hello, Arne.
Hey,
Welcome to the show.
thank you.
We're
Nice to be
already,
here.
yeah, we already spoke for 2 hours on your podcast earlier this week.
Exactly. I have nothing else to say.
So let's see if now at least we can turn it around a bit.
That's true.
Yeah. When did you start calling yourself a facilitator? Do you actually?
I don't know the specific date that happened. I do know the moment I called my colleague. This is in 2009, 8, 9-ish. And then because I started this company, Design Thinkers Group, and I came from a background of sort of design, graphic design, advertisement, and I was used to get a brief from a client, go to my company with my creative team, come up with something great, then go back to the client and say, "There you go," and then hopefully they would say, "Oh, I like it, we'll buy it." And that was basically the interaction you had with your client. And then the client might buy it, and then you go like, "Oh, now I have to produce it. Oh boy." And because we promised too much, because we wanted to win the pitch, because everything was in competition in the pitch. So all of a sudden, because I really wanted to be part of the problems, sort of, if you will, if you're where you don't have a solution yet, you're
Mhm.
still figuring out. And I was always only part of the solution space, if you will. I wanted to be
Mm.
part of the problem space, like figure out what the real question was, the real problem, do the real proper research, and that stuff. So that meant apparently that this sounds silly, but I never really realized that all of a sudden you would spend time with your clients figuring out what their problems. And also the other thing was that I realized you can't really outsource these kind of insights. You can't really outsource empathy. You can't outsource innovation. You can't outsource creativity. How can you really? It is impossible. So I remember being in a car and I called my colleague. It was just the two of us at the time, and I said, I think I'm like facilitating. I think it's
Light
I think
bulb.
it's yeah, it's facilitation that I heard this word, and that's what I'm doing. I'm not having meetings. I'm facilitating sessions to kind of extract knowledge from my
Mm.
clients and stuff. And I also said, I don't know if that's something I would like to do. I don't I don't really like that. I don't want to is that what I want to do? I don't know. Because I came from a world where I was creating beautiful, artifacts, things,
Yeah.
graphic design, and all of a sudden I was in sort of like the facilitator, and I was not. It wasn't my. I couldn't even. I wasn't supposed to share my ideas, and it was like, but I
You don't
have,
own the
but I
solution
have,
anymore.
I
You
have
only
so
own
many.
the process. Yes.
Exactly. I have so many ideas. Wait a minute. So now I can't. So I went from, I have all these ideas. I was really good at that. I was really quick in getting these ideas and then showing that to clients. And they say, yeah. And we built it and it was beautiful. And I loved it. And all of a sudden it was like, no, Arne. No, it's not about your ideas. You're just facilitating them. It's about they should have the ownership, and et cetera, which made sense. And it's logical. But I also thought, I don't
Mhm.
know if I want that. What do I do with all my ideas now? So anyway, 2008, short answer.
Love that. Thank you. And it reminds me of the work I do with my graphic designer, Lucia Golini, and I appreciate her facilitation because you just said you cannot outsource the innovation and the creativity. And I think you cannot even outsource the pinpointing the problem. And I can only imagine, or that's how I experience it. I give her the brief, and then she learned to work with me nowadays. Because back in the days, she would then follow the brief and deliver something. And I was like, oh no. Or just before the completion day, I was like, actually, there's something else we need.
Mm.
So I wasn't really clear what I needed. And now she facilitates the conversation to really
Sure.
find out and help me to identify what is it actually that I need from her.
Yeah.
And I wonder how it's for you then to switch these roles, or did you find the middle ground? Because if you do have the expertise and you do have these great ideas, do you really have to give them up? Or
No,
is
because
there
I
a
just built.
compromise?
No, no, I just because I'm an entrepreneur. I build my own businesses. So now all my ideas. And by the way, my wife is art director and graphic designer. I actually
Mm.
we were a creative team at the agency, by the way. So, and so we still do all that, and she's still the graphic designer. So basically, that's her work. So I'm really close to that, and all the stuff I kind of come up with. And by the way, I mean this sounds a bit corny, basically, maybe, but without my wife, being a graphic designer, it is, it's silly, but I come up with an idea and thought, and I go like, oh, hey, Josephine, I have this idea, and she, oh, what do you want? What do you want? Okay. Can you kind of, because the design, the visualization of it makes it come alive. I have
Yeah.
a thought. I want to create this platform, this community, or this business, and it should be something. And I have a name, and then she's like, all right, and then you could say, and then she creates a logo, but it's not what she does. She makes it come alive, and she
And
creates
that's a
a language.
facilitative act. That's also a facilitative act. It facilitates the
Totally, yeah. No, no, no. But
process
she,
of the visualization, and then you can
that's
makes it tangible and you can
It's
talk
a,
about it.
yeah, it's a visual language. It's a
Yeah.
language, and a good designer, and she's a very good designer. She creates this whole world. It's not. It's a visual language of colors and shapes, and you can build on that. That's what
Yeah.
you really want. You don't want to have a logo. You want to have a language. So
Yeah.
that really is something I still love, and I still kind of do quite often. And the other thing is that um, we had to rediscover this. It's kind of something that was interesting. Also, is that I came from a world of design, then I went to the world of design thinking, and I was sort of very um, I really pushed away the sort of the aesthetic part of design, because it was like, it's not just about, because I had this really strong urge to be strategic,
Mm.
and say design is not only
The
the
outcome.
outside, and the ribbon, and the nice kind of the shiny objects. It's actually about the thinking and the process. So I really pushed away the aesthetic side of design, and it's kind of and then we had to kind of rediscover that if we used our craft for silly things like proposals, instead of
Mm.
sending out a boring proposal with just text, but actually we would design it, and we would use beautiful photography, and we actually discovered that we became, first of all, we became more successful because clients liked it way more. Our brand, how we communicated, was actually, it got this huge lift, basically, just by doing something we knew, but we had to rediscover, like, oh, wait a minute, if we make it beautiful, people want it more. Yeah, I knew that, but just these silly proposals, like you propose for a project, and you send a project proposal to a client. If you make it really beautiful, but to me, in my mind, it was like, that's so superficial. That should not be the reason. And so I went from dismissing it completely, saying no,
Mm.
that can't be the reason. It should be about the content, and about this is really, we're trying to do something really meaningful here, people. And then I thought, wait a minute, if I do make it meaningful and real and beautiful, because
Beautiful.
we're human beings, we like beautiful things. But it's kind
Yes.
of interesting, right?
And I think the same comes true in workshops.
Of course, yeah.
If the space looks beautiful, if you put just a little bit more care in, and I think it's maybe even less about the beauty than about the care.
Well, totally. Of course, it's the effort. It is, but it's also about beauty, because, or beauty meaning, there should
Aesthetics.
be yeah, aesthetic, but meaning, for instance, in workshop, you know that, right? I mean, if you are, if you're in a dark room without any natural light coming in, that's very different than when you're in a very bright room with
Yeah.
natural light coming in. Of course,
Yes.
of course, of course. I mean, listen, this is a no-brainer, right? It's a no-brainer. But being really conscious of it, being really specific and conscious of it, saying that makes the difference. We
Hmm.
have to have that if we want to reach a certain outcome or a
Yeah.
certain create a certain energy in the room. Now, as facilitators, that's you don't always have the I mean, you don't always have that option, right? Because I've been,
Of the talent.
something like that. Yeah, you can come, and can you come and do like a workshop with us, or a 2-day course? Because we're all now, the whole team is together in this town, and we're all staying in this hotel. And so we have booked a room in the hotel, and so for you to do that workshop, and we're like, okay. And then you go
And
there,
it's
and
the bunker.
you sometimes like, can you send me some pictures of the room, please?
Yeah.
and then they're like, oh my god, there's mirrors and curtains and paintings, and there's and thick carpets, and you're like, oh god, no. And low ceiling, the worst. And you're like, oh, I have to deal with that. So you're going to be more tired because you have to put in way more energy to energize people. But if you
Yeah.
are in this beautiful space with natural light, with fresh air, it's so
And
good.
I find it interesting what you're describing, because for me then it's not so much about beauty, because the room with the mirrors and the curtains and the carpet can be very beautiful. So I'm wondering,
Yeah.
often,
Okay.
because it's then maybe about the functionality. So what do you
Uh,
want to do? Because maybe you also want to, and I think that's what it boils down to. You want to leave space for the group to make the room also their own. So to put some flip charts on the walls, to have their sticky notes, to kind of
yeah. Of
create
course.
something
Sure. Sure.
together.
Oh, of course, for sure.
And
Yeah. But
and
at
what
the same time, you're right. But if you, I mean, I rather work outside and then have everything on the floor or something than
Mhm.
being in a room that is stuffy and yeah. And I get what you're saying, that so aesthetics and beauty. I mean, it can be a beautiful room, but not functional for a workshop,
Yeah.
for sure. Of course, of course.
And it
Yeah.
does something to the energy and to the way we relate to each other. How much space do we have to walk? And then I also wonder, related to beauty, if it can be too beautiful. So if everything, I've sometimes the
Yeah.
impression that if everything is just too perfect,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like sometimes even a
Oh,
mirror board, or the flip charts that we have prepared. It's as if the participants then don't dare to
oh
actually take
no.
real notes on it, and then they
Oh
would
no.
rather write on a sticky note and put it somewhere, not to
That
destroy
can
your
even be,
design.
yeah, that can even be, I'm not sure if it's worse, but that's equally bad. So I remember being at a telco in Norway, on this beautiful fjord. They had their headquarters, and they had their innovation space, and it was beautifully crafted, and it had all this technology that, you know which is stupid. You don't put any technology in there because it's outdated a year later anyway. But so they had this globe and this, I don't know, these smart boards and but beautiful space. The furniture, it was like, it was yeah, it was all designed and designed, um, and it's horrible because you just a thought, I'm going to spill my coffee or something on this, like, no, it needs to be livable. It needs to be I'd rather have it kind of a little crappy because
Mhm.
you're not worried about putting your feet on the table or something like that. There's this, at least it's a
Yeah,
comfortable space. And
yeah,
that's actually, by the way, what happened in that beautiful space for this amazing company, that amazing headquarters, in this beautiful view on this beautiful fjord. They had the wall, which was a beautiful white leathery wall, which was great, beautiful leathery kind of, I don't know what it was. Who puts leather on the wall anyway? Well, leathery wall was kind of this fabric. And we had a visualizer, and we had this big sheet of paper, and so everything that was going on in the session, he was making drawings of this. So he was drawing with big, nice fat markers, and then we took it off. Well, what's going to happen next is everything kind of bled through the paper onto the leathery wall. And we're like, oh my God, because it was such a beautiful space. We're like, oh, we just ruined the whole wall. That must so we tried to clean it, and we just made it worse. And then they had a guy who was in charge of that room. That was basically his job. He was in charge of the room, and he came in and he was like, he could cry. And we're like, oh, we were so sorry. That's, as facilitated, I mean, oh my God, just give me a crappy space, any day, don't, and I just want to have the best place is like this kind of this almost like empty factory floor,
Yeah.
there's gonna with big windows, and it can be dust. I don't care, there's crappy tables, big windows, but also big wall spaces, right? You put up your post, and it doesn't matter if the tape leaves a little mark, or
Yeah. And absolutely. And I would, if you don't mind, I would like to come back to something that you said earlier when you spoke about the transition you made between being a graphic designer, translating the client's ideas into a design, and then moving into the facilitative role where it was less about your design, but about you helping them to process. And I wonder whether this means also stepping into leadership.
Yeah, well, so I was a creative director at the agency, and I was working with a team of designers. So I was already quite quickly the person they said, you go talk to clients. So I was, and then I would come back and work with the team. We did not send designers, like the graphic designer people who were actually making the design, to the client, because they cared too much, I guess. They're like, no, I don't, because the client would say, can you make
I'm
it
gonna
green?
change that.
Can you make it green, please? And then, the designer would, what? Or we gave them options. Often we gave them options, like, 3 options. And they always chose the one the designer hated most. So they chose this one. So we didn't want them.
This is Murphy's Law. And just to maybe to rephrase or clarify my question, because I think there are different sorts of leadership here, right?
Sure.
One is, yes, you're the creative director. So you are a leader in the company and you're meeting the client from leader to leader. And still at the end of the day, you're doing what the client wants.
Oh, sure. They didn't
And
consider
when
me.
you're
Yeah.
suddenly accompanying the client in the
Yeah.
process of
Oh,
coming to their own solution, it's a very different sort of leadership. And this is something that I was curious
yeah.
what you think about that.
There's a, well, so actually, so yes. So as a senior person from an agency, obviously the client sees you as that person, but you are just an agency, and you're just just coming in to sell them stuff. Basically, they will decide. So
Service provider.
but that's
Mhm.
as a consultant, it's the same thing. So basically, they are the client. There's there's a lot to say about that relationship, by the way, because it's not that simple. There's way more going on, because there's all kinds of relationships and values that are being exchanged there. But anyway, because the client really wants to be a part of a cool kind of company too, so the client always, if your company is really cool, they want to work with you, because it lifts them as well. So there's a dynamic there, which is really
Mhm.
interesting. I was very much aware of, still am very much aware of that relationship, because we're all just people, basically,
Mhm.
and anyway, but yeah, that changed. But yeah, but just to kind of understand where I came from, because I came from, so I've always been a creative. So I played in a band. I did theater. I did, so working with creative people, kind of coming up with creative solutions, whether it's in music or in comedy, which I did, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's sort of me, it's all the same. I work with people and I try to kind of work with together with groups of people to come up with something that is
Mm.
great and beautiful and everybody likes and et cetera. So this, as a teenager, I was in a band and, throughout my adult life, which is to me is the same thing as being a facilitator with clients. So I kind of slipped into that mode quite easily, but the big transition was not so much me coming from an agency where I would, a design agency to a design thinking agency or a service design agency, actually, which what we kind of started doing. But it was more that when we started calling ourselves Academy, when we said, I realized that, wait a minute, I'm actually teaching people.
Mm.
I'm facilitating, but actually a big part of what I do is training people, teaching them stuff, because I'm telling them you can't outsource it, you have to do it yourself. That was our whole idea. You can't outsource stuff like creativity and empathy and et cetera, et cetera. So you can ask us to do the research and qualitative research and do the observation and stuff like. You have to do it yourself. You have to. How else will you? I mean, I can come up with a persona for you, but that's the point. Is not having the persona; it's actually crafting the persona.
Mm.
That's where the value is.
Mhm.
Talking to your clients, seeing them, et cetera, and so that shift from being sort of someone who came from a academy trainer, a coach, that changed the relationship because that made it
Mm.
possible for me, which I loved, to be honest. Because what I was not when I was at the agency was honest. I was just trying to kind of, we had at one point,
Please.
we had like 30 people to, really expensive art directors and filmmakers to pay. And I just wanted to have the project, especially because we were in this. There's always a crisis, so there's always something going on, a .com crisis, and whatever. But I was really honest about what we could do, but we were driven by ideas and sales. We needed to get the project. We were competing with all these other agencies, and as an academy, that was such a relief for me because I didn't like that at all. I wanted to be honest, and I wanted to be part of the sort of the problem space to find out what the real question was. So I had to be honest because often the honest answer was that the problem was with the organization and that they couldn't collaborate and that they were, they were divided in all these silos and they, et cetera, et cetera. All the problems with the system in the company that actually was the big problem. It wasn't about coming up with a new campaign or a slogan or a website or a book or a service that they would not implement anyway. So why why I really like that is that being sort of a coach or teaching people, I could say, hey, I have another way of doing things. I have another tool. I have another method, or hey, I'm observing you acting in a certain way, and this is what I see. This might be the core of your problem, and so I could really be honest with my clients. Something I would never have told my clients when I was at the agency to say, hey,
Mm.
you're doing things wrong. They weren't asking me that. And all of a sudden, and so leadership meaning that you can kind of show people options. You go like, you're asking me this. And at the agency, I would say, I'm going to produce that for you, even though I think it's crap. But you're asking, I can't say no. I
Yeah.
need to do this website. I know you don't want a web. It's not going to help you. I went to, no, that's the wrong question. Let's dig a little deeper. I think there's another thing. I'm not going to do what you tell me to.
Mm.
I'm going to do something else.
There
So yeah, that's leadership.
It's interesting. It's for me, it came the same thing came up while listening to you. This that as a consultant or creative agency, you have to live with the fact that you're told what to do. And I realized for myself that one thing that is for me a red flag and no, don't tell me what to do. So
Mhm.
if clients start telling me what to do and how to do my job, these are the wrong clients for me. I cannot work that way.
A
And
client comes to you because they don't know what to do. So the point
exactly,
is they ask you, they come to you and say, can you do this for us? But what they're actually asking is, help me. I don't
yes,
know what to do.
absolutely, absolutely. And then from what I hear you saying is that there's also this push and pull factor. So there's a push where you push your ideas, your project, your offer to a client. And now with the academy, you're pulling those in who are interested, who have a problem and who seek an answer and therefore the training. So it's also a different dynamic and a much more creative space.
Yeah, and so that was always my mantra, if you will. I always say, you shouldn't. They should come to you. So you should create energy, movement, and then they will come to you and say, "Hey, can I be part of that?"
Yeah.
And so offering something of value and be proactive and just go and, it's the same I always tell to people who want to go and start their own business or become freelancers or want to do something. Nobody's waiting for you, by the way. No one's ever waiting for you. Nobody ever goes like, I'm looking for an Arne. No, of course not. They're not waiting for you at all. But if you so you have to kind of go and move, so you have to do the things you want to do it, don't wait, just go and create something, go and create stuff and create movement. Then they'll go like, oh, I want to be part of that.
Yeah.
There's
It
something
made
going on
sense.
there, right? Don't talk about the things you want to do, talk about the things you're doing. you know
Mm, I love
this
that.
is I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and so creating platforms, communities, meetups. So I started developing, at the time we called those mini unconferences, and
Mhm.
the mini unconferences was basically, it really was, it is the start of Twitter, by the way, and social media, right? So that magical time that unfortunately is gone, but still, that was so great because we just put on Twitter, say, hey, we're going to have a mini conference. We'll be at that bar on Friday, and that time, and then people just showed up or not. But nobody knew. If you didn't show up, you just felt you missed something, and if you did show up, it was just fun. And maybe sometimes there were 4 people, sometimes there were 20 people, and it doesn't matter, but there was this, something's going on. And it worked globally because people globally were like, they're doing stuff, and so they started repeating these things. So we do the unconference stuff was happening, and all these meetups were happening. And
Mm,
so the Surface Jam, Global Surface Jam started happening with Adam, and which is such a magical time, really. But that whole idea of nobody asks you to do that.
yeah.
Nobody asked Adam to go and let's would you like to create a global service jam? Nobody asks me to organize a conference or an conference or a podcast. Nobody's asking you to create your podcast. You do it, and you create movement, and you create energy,
Mm,
and that brings people together. Like you build a community because you started doing that, right? And so a lot of people find it really difficult. So to kind of start moving, but that is a strength of a facilitator too. I mean, not maybe it's not maybe the word is not facilitator, but I think people who can do
leader.
that are natural facilitators, because you go like, I need to create,
Mm,
because you come in a room and there's a bunch of people, and you're the facilitator. They're looking at you like, okay, what are you going to do? You have to kind of design that movement, and you have to design that space. And so people started, you have to kind of, make them come alive, literally. So
yeah.
I think if you apply that in your own life and in your own environment, in your, building your own business, it makes so much sense. So, yeah.
Yeah. What comes to my mind is, and I would love to hear more about the phase then from the unconferences to where you are now, because lots has happened in between. And what comes to my mind is this image of using the energy that is there and the people that are there and trusting that this is enough. For me, this is the facilitator's mindset. That you come into a space, there are people, they're all looking at you, yes. So there's a leadership part there. And then having the ability to either use the energy that is there to redirect it into something creative or to create an activity or a prompt or an invitation that brings up the energy that is missing.
Yeah, I'm thinking that somehow facilitation and being a facilitator kind of is sort of a limiting way of describing it. I think being a facilitator is part of it's one. It's something you can do. You can also be a facilitator. So you can, because it sounds like, there's a workshop and you facilitate a workshop, but it's way more than that, right? So you facilitate other things. I think that there's sort of a kind of attitude
Mm.
towards making things happen, and that is by bringing things or people together on a, I don't know, meta level. Sort of, you design kind of environments and bringing people together. I think that's a part of being able to, in a way. So, I think it's people who are typically a little bit, not 100%, but a little bit of an outsider, who can kind of are able to step back and observe context and
Yeah.
observe sort of that. I call that sort of being in the space in between. You can kind
Mm.
of go out of a bubble and go and be part of multiple bubbles, but be aware of that, being really aware of the fact that you kind of step back and you see sort of certain things happen, and then you can kind of reconnect them or connect them in a different way, which is
Yeah.
design. And I think that's sort of and as a facilitator, it's a practical application of that sort of mindset, of the ability to kind of be able to observe, step back, and reflect,
Detach.
and then go, hey, what if we do it this way? And
Hmm.
and so it's a leadership function. Facilitation is like being a moderator. Like that's like the almost like, it's always too small.
Hmm.
It's part of what you can do, but a really good facilitators, they can do other things too.
Yeah.
Because it's a mindset it's more than just facilitating a workshop, if you will.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think what you said of the stepping in and out, this liminal space in between, is so crucial, and it only works if you're not attached to the outcome. So if you have this neutrality, and with neutrality, I don't mean being neutral towards the content, but being neutral towards the outcome. And
Mm.
then you can zoom out to see the big picture, zoom into the details, and then point at what you observe.
Yeah, I'm not
And
sure if
thereby
it's about
being,
neutral. I don't think it's neutral. I don't think you need to be neutral in that sense. You need to of the outcome. I think what the point is that there are multiple outcomes that are, need to happen. So outcome can be, hey, we have this great idea, we can move forward. But an outcome is also, we really liked this session, and hey, everybody felt ownership. The outcome is also like, hey,
output. Yes,
yeah,
good
yeah,
point.
yeah. Right.
The
No,
out-
no, but I mean, that's interesting because whether it's output or outcome, I just mean that you are not neutral to that at all. It's just that you are observing other things that other people are not. They don't have to be aware of. That's your leadership function. You go, I will take care of things, so you don't have to worry about that.
Mhm.
And if someone is sort of more an introvert and is not participating, you make sure that that voice is heard. And that's also really important. So at the end, the team or the group or whatever, and this can be, and I'm not talking about a workshop of a day or two. This could be like a year. This could be, leading a team through, a really complicated process that takes a very long time. But you are aware of what's going on that meta level. So we always talk about sort of, you facilitate on different levels. So you facilitate on, what people do, but you facilitate also on how they do it.
Mm.
Right? And that stepping back and going like, hey, there's an interesting energy in the room. What's going on? Or hey, that person is there's, I don't know, there's something going, and you are the one to be able to say, hey, hang on, something's going on. Can I stop this for a minute?
Yeah.
So there is that, so that, and then that's outcome as well, or output.
Yes. And then it's interesting because there are elements of that that are definitely a leadership skill. So I would wish that any leader, team leader, manager had these abilities.
It is all leadership. It is all leadership. Facilitators are leaders. It's a leadership function. Leaders should be in modern day organizations. If you are not a facilitator as a leader, you're a crappy leader.
Thank you. 100%. Yeah, because then you have a tendency to go into micromanagement.
No, you're either scared of letting go,
Micromanage.
you're micromanaging, which is horrible because you're not helping your company at all. People will be totally unhappy and they will leave. So, and especially talent,
you will burn out.
Yeah, they'll get either burnout or they just go like, you're the kind of manager, and I want to say guy because in my mind these are always, I don't know, this is not true.
There are also female micromanagers.
I know somehow. That's my experience.
Very good ones, very talented ones.
Micromanagers. Let's not go there. No. So but you're the kind of manager that that then people come home and they go like, my boss, terrible. So, you don't want to be that person. And I'm not saying you can't be tough, because the other day So I have this, client friend, and she works at this huge company, very successful company, and she's a very senior person in the company, and she says the company is relentless and rewarding. It is relentless because there's no downtime. Hardly, it's an American company, so no vacations, no days off. It's just like, and to me, I go like, oh, that's horrible. Anyway, by the way, but she said, so I said, what's the rewarding part? She said, because, everything here is design thinking. Everything is really prone to act, just do it. There's no meetings. There's no PowerPoint presentations. There's just a sort of really leaning into, let's go do it. Let's go try this out. So everything you decide, is done. And instead of, have this endless kind of conversations, should we, how, when, et cetera. It's so that feeling of just, so that, which is great too. And I'm sorry.
No problem.
Yeah. Ooh, I turned it off, by the way. Sorry. You have to edit this out too.
So, which is great too.
Yeah. Okay. So, so that is very confusing. This is great for an editor. So edit this one out. This too, by the way, this sentence. Yeah.
Thank you, Gordon.
We should go like clap and then, that's good for the editor. So my point of the story of my friend who is very happy at this company that is very tough is because safe spaces and psychological safe space, which is really important for a creative leader, facilitative leader to create, also allows you to disagree, to be critical, and to say that you really don't like something, or that you feel not okay with something, because then you get to the real conversation and the real point. That actually speeds everything up when everybody feels they can say. So there's no boycotting, there's no, because that's no sorry.
And there's no bullshit.
There's no bullshit, right? And it's true, and it's honest, and it doesn't mean you can. You can still be kind. Of course, because otherwise you're not safe, but you create an environment where, your opinion really counts and you are really being heard. But also the other thing is really important, that if there's a decision being made, you support each other.
Yes.
You're like, okay, we said what needed to be said. We are honest. But now we decided to go this way, and I'm going to support it.
There we go.
Instead of going like, yeah,
And I think what you said, you can be kind. I would make the distinction between being nice and being kind. So nice is just the sugarcoating. Oh, we're so nice. I want to protect your feelings. So I don't tell you how I really feel. And then suddenly there's a problem, but nobody told you. And then being kind for me is, yes, I do have these challenging conversations, and I do speak up my truth because I know that it's helpful for you. And then it's not because of my ego that I'm stating my opinion. So I'm
Right.
kind because I give you the opportunity to grow, to reflect, and to be confronted with the truth,
Yeah,
at least my
exactly.
truth.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that in business, there's a lot of, I mean, it's all emotions, right? So anyway, I mean, we're not rational beings, right? We know that. So everything is
What?
basically, yeah, newsflash. Everything is, at first you decide something based on emotions, and then you rationalize, later, which is great because that's what people do. Because it's and actually, even that makes no real sense, because your body, which, emotions are, it's not that simple, right? So it's not like I feel something. No, it is your body telling you something that
Yeah.
is connected to your rational thinking as well.
And
It's
then your mind makes sense of what your body
Yes.
tells you if
Yes.
you, yeah.
So it's just
Uh,
that we have such a weird, screwed up understanding of ourselves and how our body and our emotions and our brain, and we have no clue how we work, how we function, and we've been fooling ourselves for a very long time. I think you would make a decision based on emotions, rationalize later,
yeah.
but it is still true. And if you are able to speak that way, if you are able to say, "Hey, I don't know, that doesn't feel right," which is something
Hmm.
that in a lot of corporate environments, that's not a sentence. You got, it feels. What do you mean? Do you have numbers? You have an Excel sheet telling me
No,
how
I
I
have a cat.
feel. Yeah, like, like, no, but you have to, because there's something there. I always talk about, I have little alarm bells in my head sometimes. I
Mm,
go like, I don't know what's going on. I don't feel the energy, or there's a
yeah.
little alarm bell somewhere. And it's there. I'm not saying that I'm always right, but there's always a reason for that. And you have to kind of give space to that. And if you don't give space to that, these emotions, or you can't share those. And a lot of companies, it's an emotional mess, and a lot of boycotting takes place, and
Yes.
not consciously boycotting, but a little bit of like, I'm not going to put in all my energy here. I'm not going to
And
really say what I really think, because
yeah.
they don't listen to me anyway. You get that sense of, actually, I'm just here to make, I'm here, I might stay here for another year or two, but I don't really care about this company. And it's such a horrible place to be. So,
And I think this is directly related to psychological safety.
of course, I
So
mean,
this
yeah,
boycotting, sabotaging,
yeah, yeah,
ego. We usually go to these places when we don't feel safe,
of course, yeah,
because we have
because
to
you're,
cover
yeah,
our
yeah,
ourselves. And I would like to double click on something what you mentioned about the body sensations, because I think the word embodiment
mm,
became quite woo woo,
mm,
or is considered woo woo, although there's so much truth in it, right? That we do have before we say something or we act or we have this emotional reaction. Usually our body sends us all these warning signs.
I like the word woo woo. That's good.
So
Yeah,
is
well,
this something that you speak about in your trainings, that you talk about with your clients? Because
yeah,
I realized that personally when I do a lot of trainings in psychological safety and difficult conversations and feedback and all these kind of things. And I always drop in a sentence of two or two, like, okay, and then sense into your body and you will feel some sort of reaction, that you start touching your neck or that you rub your thighs, or something is happening in your body, and be open to it.
yes. Totally, no, of course. I mean, it depends a little bit on the situation, but um, in every, if I coach, if I teach, how you feel and where you feel it, being
Mm,
aware of that. It's about awareness, mostly
mm,
for me. It's about, be aware of that, and listen to yourself. listen to your body, listen to how you feel, listen to, I mean, just notice how you're sitting and if you're comfortable, notice if you're stressed. I mean, we know if you feel stressed. I mean, there's no magical thinking here. There's no mystical thinking here. There's no, I mean, it's just like if you're stressed, stress is stress. And we, I mean, I don't think we have to prove that, how, your, that stress, for instance, affects your physique, your body, and your health. We know that. That's not a mystery. It's all that's all connected. It's simple. So if you're stressed, you feel different. Hey, really? Yes. So don't feel stressed. Where do you feel that stress? And so recognize that early on and speak about that, talk about that, because
Mm.
you feel it first, and you kind of push it away for a very long time, and then it's often too late. So if you have a team of people and you don't give space for that conversation of feelings, you know like, which is like so weird that we're human beings. How can you not talk about feelings? Why is that a bad thing? Because it's all feelings. Even talking about feelings make you feel bad. It's like a feeling. That's a feeling you just had when I talked about feelings. Because people are like, I don't want to. That's fuzzy, fluffy. It's not fuzzy and fluffy. It's the real deal. That's the hard conversation. The most difficult conversation you can ever have with people is about their feelings, and that's
Yeah.
why we shy away from it. So if you are a manager and you're not a facilitator, you're a crappy manager. If you're sorry, if you're, it's not my podcast, so I say these things. If you are a manager, you're not allowing people to talk about feelings. You're even worse. That's horrible, because it just means that you can't deal with your own emotions. So you
Yes.
need to deal with those, because that everybody knows deep inside it's just an emotional mess, and a company, because it's people, they come in with their own, and you don't have to be fuzzy and fluffy, and you don't have to kind of it's not you're not in, it's not a therapy session. Sure, you're in business, of course it's not a therapy session, of course not, but it's part of life. And we I just, sorry, just my thing, what I
Rent.
really
You're
really
allowed
hate.
to rent. Let
I'm
it
all
all
around
out.
here.
You can feel.
Yeah, you can feel people. No, it's just that we kind of. But I have so many friends who had been, had burnouts and stuff like that. It's like, because you just kind of, you're not being true to yourself, first of all, right? And so you don't have to take care of each other. Take care of yourself. That too. That alone would really help, right? But it takes bravery, and it takes, because if you have, like, things like burnout, or feelings, you can't see it. If you break your arm, you go like, I broke my arm. People like, oh, I have X-rays to prove it. But if you go like, I feel so bad or tired, or
Empty.
or empty, or whatever. There's lots of things people can have.
Yeah.
People are really, it's unbelievable how nasty people are. Then you go like,
Yeah.
really? Are you really, are just lazy? We're like, yeah, yes, I'm just lazy and I pretend to be tired all the time. No, anyway, so take care of yourself, before you take care of other people, like in the
Yeah.
airplane. Just have your oxygen first on, because that means you can take care of others, because that's
Yes.
also empathy. Empathy is empathy for yourself first, and then you can have empathy with others. That's a leadership
And
thing too, right?
yes, and I think it's also a sign of respect, because if I'm not taking care of myself, I somehow rely on others to take care of me. So if I cannot set boundaries and say, okay,
Yeah,
so I need a
yeah,
day off, or I need to recover because otherwise I break down. And then so I'm basically outsourcing this responsibility to someone else to send
yes.
me home and take care, which is not a very adult and responsible move.
No,
And
exactly. But if you don't feel safe, and if you don't, if you know, so it's a dynamic, right? So I can totally understand when people feel like, I'm going to be frowned upon, I'm going to get fired, I'm going to be, people that won't believe me, and I don't know what's going on. There's no room for me to not feel okay, because we have to push and push and push and move on, because I have these 30-minute back-to-back calls, and I'm, and I'm tired. I mean, I don't even have time to think about that. So there is a moment where a leader should allow that kind of conversation to happen as well, obviously.
And
But take care of
yeah,
yourself first. Take care of yourself.
and I think this is a beautiful place where we, as external facilitators, can make a real difference and maybe even induce a grain of change into organizations by giving space and allowing the space for people to feel into themselves and to express that. And it doesn't have to be in the woo-woo therapeutic way, but it can be
I like
in
woo
very
woo therapy. That you should have a woo woo therapy.
um, for instance, I'm thinking of I was working with a client and it was a difficult project, and I asked them to check in with a question: how is it to be you in this project?
Hmm.
And there was no hiding. They had to talk about themselves, and they could talk about themselves in different capacities and go as deep as they want. So I leave agency, but it's still, it allows them to just take a moment to realize, oh, we are humans and we have different experiences in that. And I recently even shared the wheel of emotions in a workshop where I asked them to check in with each other, also to speak about how they felt in different moments of the week. And then taking a second to share the link to Wheel of Emotions, stating that we are lacking the vocabulary, and very often I think we have unlearned to express how we really feel, and how it comes across then is mostly as blame. So when I say I feel disrespected or I feel judged, this is not a feeling. This is a judgment of the other person
Hmm.
or an assumption. I assume that you don't respect me, so I feel disrespected, but it's not my feeling. I might feel annoyed, angry, sad, alone,
Hmm.
small.
Hmm.
And I think this we do need a shift in organizations to allow for that space and to normalize it. And I think this is something we can bring in as facilitators.
Yeah, and again, it's not about creating an organization where we all have empathy for each other and sympathy for each other, and it's all about it's one big therapy session or something. No, it's not. It's actually be honest, and so you take away all these barriers that kind of we kind of throw up right now to kind of hide what we actually think and what we actually feel and how we. So as a leader, because as a leader, you want to know, and as a facilitator, you want to know what people think and what they actually feel, and because a company is people working together. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
company. It's a people working together for people. So
Yes.
that's all it is. And then yes, there's systems and there's stuff and there's and maybe AI later. But in the essence of a company is a bunch of people working together for other people who might buy or hire whatever they offer. That's what it is. It's a people thing. So
Yeah.
if you don't allow people to talk about people things, meaning all the things that people worry about and feel, and then and because what drives people are things like I want to be relevant, I want to kind of be part of something. Those are really basic human needs we have. And so that is what a company should also provide. You are a community of people, and it's great to be part of that. So if you have a great team, you work for a great company, you can be really proud of that. That's an energy that is amazing to have.
Yeah.
And then you love your work because you love your colleagues, and then you put energy into it. If not, I mean, what are you? I mean, sometimes you get these reports that say like 90% of people working in big companies are unhappy in their job. You're like, what is happening? Why are you if you are the CEO of a business and 90% of the people working in your business are unhappy? What's going on? Why did these businesses, I mean, what I know, to me it makes no sense. Of course they can't keep talent in. Of course they can't. Of course there's a huge turnover. Of course they can't just go and hire new people and they stay for 40 years anymore. No, they stay for 2 years and they go crazy and they go move to another company. And
Yes, totally. So how might we? So what is
Well,
a
new business. I think how might we? There's no. I mean, there's no easy solution. I think it's part of. There's always evolution, and so we have to be aware of the fact that although sometimes we feel that things that happened 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, uh, are gone in a way. They don't matter anymore because it's so long ago. But actually, history, things, culture, society, behavior, our mental models, they change very, very slowly. So the Industrial Revolution model of how we build organizations, this pyramid shapes, is still with us, but we are very unhappy with that, but it's still there. So we have to stop thinking, first of all, that we are sort of the end result of evolution or something, like we're the crowning result of whatever went before us, which we are not. It's things are changing continuously. So first of all is this idea of, wait a minute, we are actually changing all the time, but we also have this, the long nose of history. It's still we're still part of that. We're still dealing with things that happened 100 years ago. It's not gone. So we need to kind of, first of all, give ourselves time. Don't think it's going to change overnight. So respect things like, even though we sometimes feel that it doesn't work, things like agile organizations. I can be very cynical about what they call now agile organizations because it's, anyway. But these are little steps. Design thinking, it came and now it became boxed in, and so okay, what happened? These things happen, but it's all little steps towards a changing way of working and a changing way of organizing ourselves.
so if someone sees that agile is more of a label than a lived reality, what can be changed or what must be changed? Why are
Well,
you so cynical about agile?
Well, I think it's because, well, agile is usually agile until it sort of reaches top management and they don't work agile anymore. And it's just that, agile should mean that you are flexible as an organization. You can change and shift based on market needs and what you hear and listen, et cetera. Typically, I don't know about you, but I don't think, like UX, for instance, if you hire a bunch of UXers, they don't really do a lot of qualitative research. Not really. They don't have time. They don't have time to do that. Mostly, it's still business as usual, to be quite honest. And you see a shift back again from agile as well. And so, whatever agile should mean, having sort of independent teams working, in small teams, having a lot of ownership of the decision making. It's very confusing for a lot of people. I do see a lot of confused people in agile companies,
Mm.
but that's not the point. The point is that I still think it's great because it steps towards something else. I think the best way to organize, and the way we are going to, I think, in the future, is we're going to work in ecosystems, which you are
Mm.
anyway. So an agile company is an ecosystem of people and teams collaborating together in a system, right? And I think that is a format that's a way of working that's very human. Small teams, not too big. Small teams of people that know each other, can trust each other. So and psychological safety usually takes place in these smaller teams. That is, I think, a very natural way of organizing ourselves. And
Mm.
the yes thing, they already call them tribes and stuff like that. This is great, but I think that's a step towards something. And I'm not saying I know exactly what it's going to be, but I know that working in community or connected companies or network organizations feels more human. It is more natural, and it allows us to be really agile, real flexible, because you're just a small team and you can make your own decisions. And so the ownership, I think, will shift more towards these small teams.
Yeah.
And we have to get rid of this old idea of, having this management that kind of sucks up all the value to the top and gets all these bonuses for not doing doing something really important, obviously strategic and visionary, but still, like, really? Yeah, but taking all the risks. Oh, yeah, that's why you need millions. Anyway, my point is that it's this shareholder system that needs to kind of go away. The shareholder system, which will not, Arne, I know that, because capitalism, hey, people with money, it's getting worse even, like, why are there billionaires anyway? That makes no sense. They should not be there. There should be a cap on the other.
Tension alarm.
My point is that that model of shareholder, owned companies, that's a big problem. I think new companies should kind of be aware of that and be careful with that. But we still live, and again, that's why I say it's slow. It's going to take a very, very long time for
And I
these things to
think,
change.
and I think, and this is then maybe full circle back, as we're afraid of what we cannot control. So I think if a leader, manager, CEO of a company wants to move towards a truly agile company, or to more co-owned decision and true collaboration, then they need these facilitation skills to make that happen and to design this process. So it's an entire different skill set that they would need.
Yeah, you need
And if you
leadership.
know that you don't have that, because if you're suddenly creating space, and I must say that I have stepped multiple times into the trap of, oh yeah, let's invite everyone and we decide together and we have this great thing that we create together. If you're lacking the skills and the processes and the systems to contain that, it's going to be a mess in no time. And this is very dangerous. So I think the status quo for many is safer
Yeah,
than
for sure.
opening the box to more collaboration and co-ownership in organizations. So I think we have to train, yes, these facilitation skills so that collaboration can actually become possible and a daily practice in organizations.
Yeah, and totally true. So it's not just that, it's all these elements, but it's leadership, and being able to lead kind of those kind of new organizational models. That is really important, because that is without that, you can't create these models, you can't have them. But it's also that we have to create a different understanding of leadership. It's because it's not hierarchy. Everyone
Yes.
is a leader. We're all leaders. So a good leader creates leaders. That's the whole point, that
Yeah.
you, as a leader, you breed leaders. So everyone around you becomes a leader in their own right. And it's not management, it's not hierarchy. So, and yes, you need to, and to your point, um, you know, you have different different skill sets you need. So sometimes you need to make decisions, and so there needs to, yeah, I think some structure would be good. But it's this really such, this is my, this is my life at the moment. How much structure do I need, and to still allow for chaos, because chaos is creativity,
Emergence. Mm.
and yeah, emergence. And and I want that, because I myself, but I need that to be in a creative environment. So how much structure do I need before I kill the creativity, the chaos? Or how much chaos can I allow,
Before it
before,
kills the
yeah,
structure.
before it kills everything?
I
Which,
hear you.
yeah, which I've been, yeah. So I've done all that, and I love that, and I keep doing that, by the way, because I do think, I'm just a small entrepreneur, so I can do whatever I want, which is great. So I go like, let's create some chaos here, and then see what happens. And they're like, oh, that went completely wrong. Sorry, I'm sorry. Let's do it another again. And yeah. And so I know I'm working now with a group of people, with a good friend of mine, he in the US, and he is more structured than I am. and he's an engineer, and he's very structured. He wants structure, but he also knows that he needs a little bit of my chaos, and I know I need some of his structure. But so we're now going. We kind of switched it around because he used to be kind of part of what I created, my chaos. And now I'm kind of said, okay, I'm going to go your way now with this new thing. I'm going to be part of your structured approach. And I just feel like I kind of can't find my space. I
Mm,
feel like I know I need it, but that's now it's too much structure in
I
my
feel
mind.
you.
And so we're like, no, I need a little bit of chaos. Like I need this feeling of let's just go and do it. Let's just see
Yeah.
what happens instead of going before we do it. We need to kind of do all these steps, these things. Like
Yeah.
I'm just someone who's let's just give it a name and I'll ask my wife to create a logo,
Yeah.
and we don't have to go through
Oh,
the
to see what
whole
happens.
thing.
Yes.
But in the same way, that's also a sort of maybe it's even an arrogance or something, but it's really not. But it is sort of a feeling of like I'll just do that, and you just you'll see what happens. I'll just
Yeah.
go and create something, give it a name, and then you can join it, and then it's yours too. And so this chaotic approach to things, I I really like that. But if you're a big bank, huge organization, I mean, of course,
Cannot. Cannot.
you cannot, or you don't know where to do that or start
Yeah.
that. But I
Yeah.
still think that you need that little bit of chaos to innovate. If you don't allow chaos,
Yes.
you're not going to come up with anything innovative because it emerges. It's from emergence. It's from doing stupid things. It's from making mistakes. Chaos means that you're going to make mistakes. It's going to be like, oh, we dropped something, but that creates serendipity. And if you allow serendipity, it means that you allow a little bit of chaos to happen, and you will drop, you will break something will happen that is unintended. Call it a happy accident. And then you have the time and the space to recognize that, pick it up, and then say, hey, we weren't looking for this, but I found something very different. We didn't have any budget for that. It wasn't really our task. What do you
Alchemist.
and then you say, oh, let's go try it out. That's how most innovations,
Yeah.
came to be. That's how
Yeah.
we got penicillin. That's how
Yeah.
we got post-its.
Yeah. Yes.
And everything in between.
Yes. What remains your number one facilitation challenge?
Number one. That's a very good question. So it depends on when you ask me. I think if we do full circle, it's this first realization where I don't know if I like it. So
Mm.
that's always some part of me like, do I actually like that? And I think it has something to do with the energy it takes. So I think it's you the and it's not always this way, but it's if you have a team I sometimes have to, and I have to. That's already the start of where I go like, I have to uh, facilitate a team of people that don't really want to be there anyway.
Mhm.
Because for instance, my biggest challenge is first of all, so I was at a big energy company. They wanted to come up with innovative. This is before the whole solar and the whole energy transition became something that is very top of mind. But it was sort of just before that, but they already knew they needed to kind of become more the leaders of kind of new energy. Um, so they started this new company, and they needed to be innovative and have to come up with innovative services and solutions for this new company they wanted to create, and big German energy company. Um, they had a team put together of people that were going to do that, come up with these innovative products, and they were also told they got like 6 months or something, like very short, to come up with something that would make them at least a couple of millions. That was their task. Like
Mhm.
they had an exact number. I don't know what millions somewhere, an exact number. This is what it should kind of generate that profit from that idea that you still don't have. And here's a team. And the team came from the UK, different countries, the Netherlands, Germany, and they were put together. And so, but why were they chosen? Because they had time, because they weren't doing any other project. They could be spared.
Oops.
They did not want to be there. And they were like, we have, so what if we don't come up with that? Are we going to kind of be punished for that? Like, this is like, so they got this huge pressure. Not safe, not safe at all. They didn't really know each other. And here I was. And so I was like, and I also knew that it wasn't going to work. So often the challenge is that if you are facilitating something and you know it's not going to work, you told them so, but they still say, yeah, but we're going to do it anyway. And you still say yes. And then you find yourself with this group and you look at these people and you're like, they're not going to do it. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
Am I going to say, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to quit when actually, you need the money because it's your, you have a family, you have children,
Mm.
you have your people that you need to support. And you're like, so the number one challenge for me is avoiding these kind of, getting caught in this. That you're like,
Yeah.
because sometimes I was too far, I thought it was okay. And then I was already too far. I
Listening to
already
the gut.
sent they already paid the first 50%, and like, oh no. And they're going to hate me,
Yeah.
And so that is the number one challenge, and
Mm.
because do I want to be in that position? Do I really, when I want to do things that I believe in, and it's sort of so that's the number one challenge I
Yeah.
have, to avoid, to be right up front, to know, oh, stop, stop, stop,
Mm.
stop. These alarm bells I was talking about, to listen to these alarm bells,
Yeah.
listen, you heard them,
Yeah.
but so yeah, which sometimes my brain goes, I can do it. No,
Mhm.
they're nice. No, no, I think they, no, I think they really want this. No,
Yeah.
we had a good conversation. I shared, I was honest. And then still you're like, oh, damn it. I knew it.
And another question that is related to that, I always ask, what makes a workshop fail?
Preparation. Not preparation, by the way. Not being prepared. Not having talked to the people that are going to be in your workshop. Not spending the time to talk to the client honestly. So they expect something different, and you don't know what they are expecting.
Mm.
That's the number one reason why things fail. I was at a workshop, or training, actually. It was a training, 2-day training, very simple. I ran that training for, I don't know, a million times. That was part of the problem, by the way. And I was traveling, I was flying, and I was going to do this training. I didn't really prepare because I did it so many times. I ran the training exactly like I always did. They hated it, and I didn't understand why. At the end of the day one, they appointed a leader, which was a telltale sign, by the way. I was kind of confused by that in the beginning because they appointed a leader, and the appointed leader stood up and said, "Arne, um, we just talked about this. We really hated this first day. It was terrible. So those, made no sense, and we really didn't like it." And I was like, "What?" Never. I was like, "Oh." I'm like, "Oh boy, that's interesting." So what? Because I was like, I've done, because my brain was like, "What did I do wrong?" I did exactly the same as I always did, but it had something to do with me. I was too tired. I didn't really realize their the reason why they were in the session. Really,
Mm.
I just thought they needed the training, and I just went through this training, like so. And so there was no connection. I didn't really connect to their real needs. I didn't really understand their conversation or their expectations, or right. And then yeah, so we solved it because then someone else did day two. And they loved him, which is like, what? Anyway, because I was like, I can't go. I'm not going to do day two. And then we had a good conversation about that and their expectations. And then a colleague of mine did the second day, which was great. Apparently, so I wasn't there. So that was horrible. But
Mm.
I we obviously reflected on that, And by the way, if you're a facilitator, you need a team of people that is this warm bath of like, people go like, oh yeah, come, I know. Yeah, the client was really upset, right? Yeah, well, come on, let's have a coffee and we'll talk about, because that happened. Oh, remember last year that happened to me too. Like, oh, it's like, instead of going like, what happened?
Yeah.
The client is not happy with you. No,
Yeah.
you're like, because as a facilitator, to be honest, you go out there, you're vulnerable, you make mistakes. We're just
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
right? And you need a support system, and then you can reflect. You go, oh, right, I didn't. I did. Did you talk to anyone in the session before? I said no, and they were what we call blue consultants who know better, and they
Mm.
all knew better. Like, I was very angry with them too. I was angry with them, which is not good because it was my fault. But I was still, so I was like, I'm angry with them. They're stupid people,
Feels so good.
stupid
It feels so
consultants.
good
Yeah,
to
yeah,
just
yeah.
blame the world.
Right.
Yes.
And you need a colleague go like, that's their fault.
Yeah. And
And
then
then,
after we
yeah,
calm down, it's also a very good way to, reflect back and to learn.
yeah, totally.
Daniel Pink's book Regret is sitting on my table to be read. How much we actually can learn from regret and that we often
Oh,
don't.
yeah. So you need a safe space as a facilitator then, right?
Yes.
To go like, first to voice your frustration, and
Yeah.
then, and just kind of, and then just go like, maybe I could have, and
Hmm.
maybe I didn't really, I didn't even spend a minute to kind of really listen to what they were. They just did this basic training. And that's
Yeah.
so stupid, because when you train people, you ask them to change behavior or something. You ask them
Yes.
to change. And that's a big thing. If you look at everything you design, or all the training that you run is about changing someone's behavior, and that's the most difficult thing you can do, because changing behavior is really tough. And
It feels
so,
unsafe. Yeah.
yeah, so then you're like, so I was there and I was just going through the motion, and actually what I was asking to do to really change the way they were working and thinking and acting and behaving. And I was just like, okay, here's journey mapping. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's not about journey mapping, it's about,
Connection over content. It always boils down to that, right? So you first need to create the safe space, the connection, then you can offer the content.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, I
Thank
think,
you.
that's the challenge that I it's not my biggest challenge, because I kind of know that. So it's not a really challenge.
Mm.
It's just my biggest challenge is really listening to my little alarm bells in my head,
Yeah.
not getting to like, wow, this is an amazing company, and they ask us to work for them. Wow, it's Google. Google asked us to do this workshop. Wow, this is amazing. Let's go and do it.
Yeah.
Yay. And then this alarm bell goes like, this is going to be a horrible project. They're not
Yeah.
real. They don't really want you. I've done project where I knew they were just using us for something else.
Mm.
And I knew it, but I was like, but this is this cool company, and
Yeah.
we could put it on our resume. And then I can put on my CV that I worked for this amazing company. And so you get kind of lured into this kind of position. And so being sort of truthful to yourself, and being able to listen to the voices in your head and your body, because you're like, I
Yeah.
feel there's something, and I don't know.
Yeah.
And then say no. This is
Yes.
the biggest thing. Say no. Say no. I'm not going
Yeah.
to do it. No, I won't. And there's companies I won't work for, so I will not work for like tobacco industry. I say I won't work for the weapons industry, and then someone said, "You worked for Philips, right?" I said, "Yes." They do work for the weapons industry. Like, okay. You
Oops.
work for
Yeah.
Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, you dig into their past for a little bit. You know what kind of evil company that really is? Like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. And plastics, you don't worry about the environment. Oh, come on. I need to live, so,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's the other challenge. Like, say no. So it's a challenge because it's not easy, right? It's not something I've solved.
Yeah.
I get caught in these situations still. Where you're like, oh,
Yeah. So our gut is our best advisor. Also, when it comes to, okay, maybe it is too much and we don't have energy to say yes to this workshop because we don't have time to prepare and to really connect and to be there.
Yeah, instead of say,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, fine. And you're like, oh no,
Nah.
I should not have done that.
Yes.
Yeah, I made so many. We could fill 20 podcasts with the mistakes I made, by the way. So and we won't. Well, maybe we will. We will.
Thank you. Thank you so much for filling this one podcast with
My
me.
pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's been
I hope I created some chaos. I hope so.
You did.
I tried.
Thank you for that.
I tried.
Yes, food for thought.